Hello, I'm Dr. Wendy Rowley, and welcome to the Heartfield series, episode 26. In this series, we're going to explore a little bit the relationship of the heart field to enmeshment with Mother Earth. And I'm also got some exciting news, and I decided that it would be fun to do something with this. So I'm going to show you today I'm wearing my little dolphin earrings. Now, why and what's special about that? People talk about etheric whales and etheric dolphins, and they say that they are the code holders for species on the planets. And it's sort of a mystical, metaphoric way of speaking about energies. It's like a mythology, a new mythology, I say, we're creating. So, in that, there is some understanding that the codes for a species are held by some beings that have to do with the grids and the matrices and changes and the evolutionary upgrades and all this stuff. And who knows? It's a nice mythology, though. It's a nice picture. And they do seem to be coordinating around the world with a lot of energy work on the other side of the veil, doing lots of upgrades and new healing paradigms and new things happening. And I have recently, in looking for speakers for the Great Global Healing Party happening January 22nd through the 26th, 2024, I recently have, in looking for speakers, found that there's a lot of people with the same picture that I've come forward to do and work with because I think it's so beautiful. I don't have any desire to be out on the web or be in the public forum, but I've come forward for this work because I believe in the heart of it. Because this is the Heartfield series, and it is the heart field of our soul group energy. So I'm going to get out of the way and let Allaenea come and speak and fill in the information. And so the reason I have these little dolphin earrings on is because a whale would be a little hard to carry on your ear. Maybe not. Maybe they exist. I don't know if there's a whale earring. I'll have to look. But it's to say this is a special day because we're going to be doing something called an activation. Now, what is an activation? It's a type of spiritual energy work in which you get an enhancement from the soul in some of your spiritual fibers. So it's more soul presence to come in. It's the soul enlivening at the soul group level for us as a group some upgrades or new pathways of benevolent energy, and usually that energy then comes in and things will percolate up and you just allow it to heal through and whatever. It's usually a very benevolent feeling. So we're going to be doing an activation today with the heart field, which we had said in the beginning of this series that there would be some. And here it is, episode 26. Okay, thank you for listening, and I'm going to get out of the way, as I said, and let Allaenea do her thing. Oh, good day to you, dearest beings of light. This is indeed Allaenea of Cosmic Service, a Pleiadian mother of sound. And as I always say, peace be with you, peace be with you, peace be with you. This one did a very good job describing the activation. We would like to add a little bit more for your understanding. Imagine you are here in your body, and you have a spirit body, and you have an interim spirit body. Like you have an interim grid that we've talked about. The interim Christ grid, the interim soul creational grid, whatever name you are gotten used to calling it. And then you have your master or Christ grid where your soul resides in a lot of stage of perfection already. So in those grids and in those energies, there is a way to send soul forces through the interim grid into the interim spirit body for allowing evolutionary changes in the spirit body. So the interim body is almost like a change body. It allows the changes to come through, and then there's work maybe to create a physical organ for that or to create a new pathway for that energy to move through. So your spiritual anatomy is a living and creative event that you all create in your creation as a soul group. Interesting thought, isn't it? So we want you to have understanding that the activations are the energy of the soul coming off of the master grid, the Christ grid, where it comes into the planet and hooks in and then does its thing and gets enmeshed more and more through incarnations and eventually gets practice being in a body and gets good at it and gets on with it, and more soul forces come in, and that's kind of the way it works. It's kind of like got a system. So this energy is able to, from the soul, be brought through to the interim Christ grid, the interim soul mastery grid, and brought over to the higher self. And the higher self is your earthly incarnations, as we've spoken about, but it is also a gateway for energies of the high soul forces to come into your being. Ever have an experience of feeling a very benevolent feeling, a warm heart feeling when something good happened, or you were with loved ones, or good thing happens? That's coming from the high soul level of the higher self. Because we've said there's some benevolent energies up at the high levels of the heart field. There's a golden akash of all the good when you worked in soul groups together, and you put gold up there that's used in healing when you work together as soul groups, as you will in January. There is energies of benevolence from your akashic records of soul group experiences that can be brought into a group of people doing healing work at the soul group level, where they will have a wash over them of a particular feeling. And that can happen. That doesn't feel dense in the body and physical, but it feels outside of you in a periphery kind of a feeling. So it's subtle, but it can be done. So there's many things that your soul can do to send benevolent forces of entrainment and sort of like nudges of messages or feelings through this gateway from the Christ grid through the interim grid through the higher self. So we wanted to share that with you so you understand more of what an activation is, that this is coming from the benevolent forces of soul creational level that is linked to the Creator's heart out in the greater field that we talk about in some of these videos. So if you don't understand what we're saying, we suggest chip through the Heartfield series, and you're going to start to get an understanding of energy, of systems, of the planet, of soul groups, of the heart field, of the Creator's heart field, the Supreme Being Creator pathway that you have in your spirit body. And you get a little more understanding of you and your spiritual nature. For this is what this one's work is all about. She is 100% spirit. She loves it, and she does it, and she's done it for a long time. Okay, enough of that. So let's talk a little bit more about your heart field's connection. And we're talking at the soul group level. We're talking at the soul group level, not your individual level. The soul group level, heart connection. Now we said that there are 3 higher self soul group bodies. Like you have your individual spirit body, that's your creation. You have a group creation that has a group soul group body. And there are 3 of these through the evolutionary pathways. There is the one that is just into the consciousness grid of the earth that needs healing, and it has a lot of connections up to that benevolent pathway of the golden akash, where those healing forces will be coming down through your higher selves when you do that in January. You have the interim spirit body in the interim Christ grid or interim soul creational grid. And you have a higher self group soul body there also. And then out in the field where the heart of the creative source of creation is, we call it the Supreme Being Heart Engine. It's kind of the creational engine that moves things along, and it changes and it upgrades through the long history of a planet spinning through space. And so the field also has a group soul body. So these are 3 higher self soul bodies. So the higher self at the soul group level is able to also bring in some other types of feelings. And so we're going to be explaining a pathway that has not been understood so much. That is through the higher self. And we're going to be explaining more about the higher self as we continue through the rest of the Heartfield series. And we will be continuing also to explain a little bit more about the pathways and the evolution of the higher self and what happens when the higher self is evolved enough, because that is really juicy information, and it's a wonderful picture for you all to hang on to for your future. So this is a uplifting and inspiring and futuristic series of videos we're doing, the Heartfield series, the new connections, and the get out of the way, this, you don't have to remember names, get out of the way, this one, and the human potential. And in those series, we are giving you tidbits of fascinating information about your amazing spiritual nature and your understanding of the systems of the earth and your connection to the divine and future evolution, so that you realize the spirit that you are in now is not the big picture. It's an interim changing picture that you are evolving through. All right, it will get better. So let us talk a little bit more, because we want to keep these videos short, but we have not actually videoed for a while because water mains on the main street here going on, the whole water main's being replaced for this town, and also a bathroom plumbing thing that required digging pipes outside of the house. And so there's been some interruptions and things going on, and so there had to be a little pause. So forgive us for that if you've been steadily watching through this series as we've been loading it up onto YouTube. Okay, let's talk about the earth and the higher self and your connection there. The higher self is something that you begin to form the more incarnations that you have on the earth. You develop a higher self connection, and you develop a higher self link into the group spirit body. And it doesn't happen in the very beginning, because you need to learn how to get into a body, how to be here on earth, how to work with other humans, how to survive, how to take care of the body, how to eat, how to make an income, all the basics of a newbie arriving to a planet and figuring some things out. And then you have the ability to link into this higher self connection at the soul group level. And so in that, we would like to describe, of the many, many pathways that are there, 2 particular pathways this day. And we can tell you there's probably about, at this active time, 20 pathways through the higher self going to various places. And in the future, well, that gets quantumly, exponentially increased, and we'll just leave it at that. So we wish to talk about 1, the earth connection, and 2, the high soul field, supreme being creational energy, supreme being engine creational energy connection of the higher self, because we're all about healing. We're all about evolution and change. So the higher self has a connection in your body. Your higher self comes down, and it doesn't necessarily really hook into your spirit body, but it is very involved in the interim spirit body, because that makes sense. It's a change body. But in your spirit body, it comes down, and it's outside the spirit body. We're trying to do the left side of this body. As we said, we can use the throat and the arm channels. And so it comes down on the right side of the body, and it then comes in at the heart. And there's a very specific energy and thing going on there. And then it continues to come down. It goes into the 3rd chakra and into the 2nd chakra, the 1st chakra. It goes down to below the feet, and it goes out again and connects to the main higher self channel along the side of the left side of the body. That's who knew. And so that higher self has a connection to Mother Earth. And that connection is in the 1st chakra. For those of you who are energy workers and know about the chakras and the energy systems, it's the base of the spine, for those of you who don't know. And it's the energy of the body. It's about survival. It's about food. It's about taking care of things. And it has a lot to do with your relationship to the earth, does it not? because you're now in a physical thing, and there's physical structures, and there's food, and there's work, and there's a system that you must partake in to survive here. So the higher self is linked into Mother Earth in a very profound way. So as you evolve through your incarnational journey and you go in and have this relationship at the soul group level with the higher self, you then begin to experience and begin to develop a very profound relationship with Mother Earth. It's why people can go to the mountains or the beach and they feel a presence. It's why in your senses, in your eyes, for some people who have seen an aura, it's the energy field, the aura, just like you have one around your body, so do the plants, and so do the animals, and so do the minerals, and they have an auric field. And so around the plants, some people see the aura, the little white shining light around the flowers, and some people see and have animal communication and la 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 la. Many of these aspects are seen in the healing and spiritual arts. And so that is possible because of this connection down into the first chakra, into the etheric layer of the elemental kingdom. Believe it or not. The connection at the high soul level of your higher self, off of the human crystalline grid, over to the interim grid, up and outside your inner and outer torus, and all people's inner and outer torus, to a group field that's got the big F that people call the field, where we're all connected as one and we're creating together. And we call it, for lack of any other better words at this point in time, the Supreme Being's creational engine. And so we're talking about that spirit body of the higher self, the one that's in the field. That higher self has a connection to the earth through the soul. And this has not been so much spoken about. So we want to speak a little bit more about that. The higher self's connection through the soul at the high creational level in the field of the Supreme Being creational engine, where the creational soul group spirit body is that you all have. And this one's starting to think, oh, wait a minute, are these just like our minis of our human individual body? Get out of the way, get out of the way, get out of the way. She's just an energy researcher. She's an archaeologist of the soul and a researcher of spiritual anatomy. And so she's always looking at that. Okay, let's get that out of the way. And so the higher self connection to the earth out in the greater field is a creational and manifestational ability of the souls creating within Mother Earth. And we're going to give you a small example that this one has had an experience of, so you have an understanding of some of this as a concept. She was on the beach walking, and she's very aware of the astral field, and there are all sorts of little creatures and critters and things and beings, and it's a very busy place because it's multidimensional, and you're a multidimensional planet, and there's a lot of beings here besides the humans. And this is pretty well coming out, and it's known, and people are talking about it on the YouTube and the web, so it's not strange to say that anymore. So in the get out of the way. In the field and in the creational level, and in that connection down into the earth, it connects to the astral field of the earth, where all these beings are. And this one is aware of, let's just say that there's something that looks like snakes and spiders on the other side. Nothing to be afraid of. We don't want to create those kinds of pictures. That's not how we work. But we need to give you an example because of the long-range picture we are trying to paint. So we showed her, and she has seen these, and she knows them, and they're a little troublesome. They're a little negative, and they try to stir up stuff. And some of the thoughts that humans hear are not always them. Sometimes it's just some of these little critters, and it's not your territory. You don't have to worry about it. And so she sees this, and she knows how they look and things like that. And we showed her a future evolutionary picture so that she could understand the concept that humans are creating within the astral field of the earth, and it has an effect on the beings there and their creation. And we showed her what the astral beings are going to look like in an evolutionary future when you all are farther down the road. And she was blown away. They were benevolent, they were light-filled, they had changed, and they didn't say mean things anymore. Kind of like the healing that you do in your own Akash and your own soul's journey, is it not? So there is an attractant and an enmeshment with Mother Earth and the attractant of the types of beings that come to the planet. And in the beginning, it's messy, and this planet is very protected on who can actually really come here. And those that do come are because of a specific, we call it the fire of friction, to stir up a little bit of something so it gets looked at. And then sometimes they're just moved out. But, so, not to worry about anything, but we want you to understand that this connection of the higher self, soul, group, spirit body in the outer greater field, as it evolves, affects the entire astral field of the earth and all the beings that are in it and all of their evolution and all of the benevolent thoughts through all these beings that spill into the human quantum multidimensional reality of the human sensing system, which we have told you your 5 physical senses have spiritual components, and they go from you all the way to the soul. It's how your soul registers. It may not be the same as you touching a table or seeing things. It registers in a different way, but it does register through those senses that get more refined and more intense and more evolved in the creational levels as they get toward the soul. And so we wanted you to have understanding of these 2 pathways within the higher self, and that you will be working in these pathways in January. For those pathways are primed, and that work was done from the last 26 years. The last 26 years. We're just going to leave it at that. The setups were put in place. Okay, so now we're going to do that activation. This one does activations in sound, and this activation is an enhancement of the sound channel of the higher self from the field to the interim Christ grid, where the soul group spirit body is. It's an enhancement of one soul group body to another soul group body in the sound channel, which is the creational channel the soul uses. Heady thought. We're throwing out concepts that you might not be used to, but we want you to have understanding of pictures to make a bigger picture. So just, it's okay. We know some of you are getting a little worked up over this. Now, what we wish to have an understanding of is that that increase in energy is an increase in benevolence, creational ability, and the ability to begin to feel the shifting of the healing on the human consciousness grid, so that you can feel the shift on the human consciousness grid. This activation allows the human to feel the shift on the human consciousness grid. That's all it takes, from the field to the creational soul group level, so that this will allow the soul groups that come together to do the grid healing work and the loving work and the feeling work and the nature of the evolutionary soul potential that is pulling people together now in benevolence. Groups are forming, groups are forming. This one's finding out there's more people that have the same picture she does. They might not bring in the same tool, but they have the same picture. So groups will form, and there's going to be more and more and more and more and more healing. So anyway, this allows that to happen. So this is why we are putting this particular activation out on YouTube. So if you wish to have that feeling, nature, in your higher self, of the changes going on in the grid, this will allow you to feel from, that didn't feel so good, to, oh my gosh, that feels really different. That's the difference on that. All right, we will not return after this. This is a little bit of a long channel because we've had a little bit of a break, because this one's working up a whole bunch of the other technology issues to get the conference ready, the event, the Great Global Healing Party. She's pulling in the speakers, And she's got, even to her utter amazement, a pretty impressive crowd. She can't believe it. That is to her a little bit of validation. And so we hope that you feel the call and you join in this healing event. All right. We will see you in the next Heartfield series, or Human Potential, or the New Connection. All right, that concludes the activation. This is Dr. Wendy Rowley. I close my eyes during certain aspects of sound work because I like to watch the energy anatomy. And I'm going to start sharing that during the the Great Global Healing Party, to give a little more dimension to the healing process. And the reason why I do this in sound is so that we don't have to sit in silence and kind of sit there going, well, did it happen? It lends a texture to the healing. It lends things for your genetic entity to pick up vibrations of subtle harmonics or sound or the vibration. And then some people sense that in their energy field. So it gives a little bit more depth and dimension to the energy work, which is why I do that. And so I think I'm going to wrap up with that. I was going to describe the energy anatomy. Sorry. So the central column, your interdimensional DNA, and your beautiful heart field, and there were connections way up in the soul level of your Akashic records, way up above your seventh chakra, and it's actually between your last incarnation and this. And there was work there, and then that came down, and it was pretty much high heart. It was high heart, so it's a high heart feeling nature of some sort. And I just started to look at this in meditation a little bit more, because there's, in this equinox we just had, a flood of emotions came through there that needed clearing. So this is starting to seeming to be getting active for clearing work and healing work and moving that through. So that can manifest as just a feeling of pressure in here. You sense that, and just ask for help with your guides. Just ground yourself, run your energy, go for a run. So you might go through waves, sometimes with an activation or an alignment or a thing, and it's all good. Your soul is taking care of it. Trust in your soul and your spiritual ability and your ability to create change, miracles, healing, and benevolence in your life now, especially in the time we're in. Okay, this is Dr. Wendy Rowley. This is the end of episode 26 of the Heartfield series. It was a long one. We had a lot to explain. And please like, subscribe, and comment. And please come to the Great Global Healing Party on January 22nd. It's free. but you register to enter in. It's not out on the web for the public. It's a particular calling for some people. There'll be 20 speakers, hopefully 20. We're getting there. And a lot of interesting information of people who are out there doing work for the new energy and creating change and benevolence on the earth with their work. And it's amazing the synchronicities you're starting to see in the spiritual community around the work that's going on. It's very, very fun. So thanks.